CNT125 Remote Access Lab. We just left off with setting up all the client connections and making sure we have communication through our network. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start using our remote connections that we configured. Just to put it in perspective, we have a Harrisburg site, we have a Philadelphia site, and if I go to my physical site, I have the Harrisburg City, Philadelphia City, and I have a network here at the Harrisburg side with devices in my closet. And right now, I actually have a console connection with my laptop here. And if I were to look at my Philadelphia City, I would see a similar arrangement. Workstations here, go in my closet, here's my routers, my switches, and I have a console connection here with this laptop. Alright. Coming back here. So right now, the way we've been working it is we basically need to be in that closet, in this closet here, using this laptop to configure and work on the router that's in here. Now that we've configured remote access on this router with Telnet and remote access on this router with SSH, we now have some flexibility that we can connect to these routers pretty much anywhere we want to. So sitting here in a PC in the building, maybe not even in the closet, I could get access to this router. So if I open up this client computer here and I use a Telnet or SSH client, and that can be something like PuTTY or MOBA Xterm. There is actually applications I can load on my device. I can open this and I can remotely connect into that router, and I don't need to be in the closet with it because I've configured access to it. So I'm going to Telnet into this Harrisburg router. Okay, I'll use the IP address 192.168.100.1. That's my gateway address. I'm going to connect, and I need to plug in the username of Doug that I configured and the password of password that I configured. Again, remember the cursor does not move here, so type with some confidence. And you'll see that I'm connected into the Harrisburg router. Enable class. Again, cursor does not move, so type with confidence. And now I'm at enable mode, and I can do things like show run now and see, and I can even do show IP route and see things on this router. And if I wanted to, I could even configure terminal and do things like interface config, fast Ethernet, 0/0, and I can actually work on the router while I'm not in the closet with the router. That is the whole point of this remote access. Oops. Okay. And I just closed out my session right there. So this workstation somewhere in the building could get access to this router via Telnet. So that's the first connection we did right there. Let's now try the SSH connection. And I'll go over here. Again, we have a laptop in the closet, but I could connect to this router via SSH with a client in the building. So I will open this, and I'll open my SSH client. Again, this could be something like PuTTY or MOBA Xterm. I'll open that, and I need to plug in the IP address of the router, 172.32.01. Username, Doug. I'm going to plug that in here. Connect, and it's going to say, what's the password? Password. Oops, I hit my caps lock. Password. Yep. SSWRD. There we go. Type with confidence. Enable. Password of class. And I'm now in the Philadelphia router. That's where your host name on the router becomes handy and helpful. And again, I can do a show run here. I could even do some configuration on this device, which is the whole point of this remote access. So in this part of the lab, I'll close this out. This part of the lab, I want you to use your Telnet client to get into the 2011 router at the Harrisburg side, and use the SSH client to get into the Philly router, the 4321 router at the Philly side. Now, I don't have this written in, but if we go a step further, what if I am in Harrisburg and my Philadelphia Philadelphia counterpart calls me and says, hey, I'm having trouble in this router. Can you help me? Well, depending on what it is, I might be able to remote into that Philadelphia router while I'm sitting in Harrisburg to help them work on it. So what I would do is sitting in my client computer here, again, pull up the Telnet SSH utility, PuTTY, MOBA Xterm, okay? And I need to plug in this IP to get to it. Again, I don't have this written in the lab. I'm just showing you where this becomes useful. If I know this IP address, which is actually 10.10.10.2, I know that from the map, and I also know it from, if I hold my pointer over the router here, you can do it, and I look at that 000 port, it's 10.10.10.2. If I plug that IP address in, I should be able to get access to this router, again, over in Philly. So 10.10.10.2. Again, the username I configured is Doug, so I'll say connect, password of password, type with confidence, and you'll see I'm in the Philadelphia router. I'm in my Harrisburg PC, and I've connected into the Philadelphia router. Enable, class, show run, etc., etc. I could actually make changes to this. Config T, I could do host name. I was here. And you notice the router prompt changes to I was here. Okay, so I can remote in and connect and configure and work on this router. Now let's put this host name back to what it should be. Host name, we need this to be Philly 4321 router. There we go. I got to put that back. There we go. Now it's back. But the point being, this router sitting in Philadelphia, I'm using my Harrisburg client, and I'm remoting into it. As long as I know the IP address and the configuration used to get to it, I can remote into devices. Now, we did not configure the switches for remote access because we haven't configured switches yet, but I could easily add remote access onto these switches to remotely connect into them for configuration purposes as well. That becomes just as handy as connecting into the routers remotely. Alright, so this part of the lab, make sure you're using your Telnet client to get into the 2011 router, and then the SSH client to get into the Philadelphia router. Alright, once we've done that, let's get our sniffers in the network so we can start examining this traffic. So we're going to do this on the physical tab. I'm going to go to the physical tab, and I'm going to go to, let's make sure I'm in the Harrisburg. Actually, there's a Harrisburg City, Harrisburg office. I'll go to the Harrisburg closet. And in the rack, I want to add a sniffer and a hub. So I'm going to go to my end devices. Here's my sniffer. We'll put this right up here in the rack. And then I'm also going to add a hub. So I need to go my network devices. Down here is hubs. And I'm just going to pick packet tracer hub, and I'm going to slide that right below the sniffer. Now I need to cable in the hub and the sniffer. So what I'm going to do is remove the connection between the switch and the router. This one right here. I'm going to remove that connection. And I'm going to reconnect the router. I'll just go from the router here. Get my straight through cable. Router into the hub. I need the switch into the hub. So I'm going to go back to this port 24 on the switch into the hub. And I now need the sniffer into the hub. But the sniffer and hub are layer 1, so I need a crossover cable between them because they're essentially the same type of device. So I'm going to do crossover, and I need Ethernet 0 on the sniffer, Ethernet 0 into the hub. Again, any port does not matter. I'm going to repeat this, so I'll back out. I'm going to repeat this for the Philadelphia City. Because I want one on each side so I can look at the Telnet traffic on one and the SSH traffic on the other one. So let's add a end devices here, sniffer here. I'll slide him up a little bit. There we go. And we need network devices hub, packet tracer hub. I'm going to put that right below the sniffer. Get in there. I'll remove this connection between the router and the switch. I will reconnect up Let's go right from router right into the hub. And then we need the switch into the hub. And we need a crossover between the hub and the Sniffer 00, or fast Ethernet 0 port. I'll get it yet. There we go. So now I have a Sniffer at each side, and the reason I'm doing this, I can use the Sniffer on the one side to look at Telnet, and the Sniffer on the other side to look at SSH. So I'm going to back out, and I'm going to go to my logical tab, and don't panic, they're going to be low, goofy looking. So we'll move our, I don't know quite why it does this, but I'll move my hub up here. Might need to do a couple steps to get it up there. I'll move my hub up here. I need to move, looks like the Sniffer goes over to that site. I'm going to move this Sniffer up here. There we go. So there is the hub for this site. And I'll do the same thing. The Sniffer over here at this site, I just need to drag this hub up here. Alright, keep going. Here we go. There we go. Alright. So now I have the hub and Sniffer at each site. What I'll need to do next is, and that's actually should be what I have here, I'm going to configure these that I can look at the Telnet and SSH traffic. Okay. In the next podcast, we'll do that. We'll configure each one and look at the traffic coming through them.